Hi, everyone. Welcome to Universal Design for Learning and AI in the Classroom. I have to say that this content for this module is some of my favorite because I love AI and I love UDL. So UDL stands for, again, Universal Design for Learning. I'm going to give a quick overview of UDL, and then I'm going to focus primarily today on how AI can then support UDL implementation. And what I really want to emphasize is that although this presentation is talking about AI in the classroom, I'm thinking about learning in general. So even if you are not working with K through 12 learners, if you are focusing on adults or in higher education, UDL is applicable wherever learning occurs, which I would argue we are learning at work, we are learning in the community, all over the place. So regardless of kind of who your learners are, if they're beyond the traditional ones, this content is really applicable across the board. So let's go. So what is Universal Design for Learning? It really is kind of originated from brain-based research, and it is a set of guidelines for designing instruction that meets the needs of all learners, regardless of their abilities, disabilities, or learning preferences. And the idea is that it's flexible learning. And one of my favorite experts in the field of universal design for learning is Katie Novak, and she provides this beautiful analogy of how universal design is different from differentiated instruction. And so that's where when you see flexible learning and personalized learning, some of you might think like, oh, that's differentiated instruction. And she again does this amazing analogy where she says differentiated instruction is like if you were having a dinner party and you invited 10 guests and you sent out a Google form to each guest and you said, oh, can you please share what your favorite food is and if you have any dietary restrictions. So then you have, one gluten-free, one vegan, one vegetarian, one pescatarian, and you're like, whew. So now you're making an individual meal for each person that supports their dietary restrictions or their preferences. That's differentiated instruction, tailoring learning to each individual's needs. Where UDL is different is if you know that you have 10 people coming to dinner and you know that there's a wide variety of dietary needs and restrictions and preferences, you then create a buffet. And in your buffet, you have vegan options, vegetarian options, gluten-free options, and you have pescatarian options. And you have all these options, and you're not forcing individuals to only take what they need. Maybe your person who has never had vegan food tries vegan food and says, ooh, that's really good, right? And is kind of taking an opportunity to try something different. And what it also does is it alleviates some stress on the teacher and on the planner, right? Because ahead of time, you are ensuring that your learning is accessible to no matter who joins your classroom. And again, or who joins your training or who joins your course. And so that's the big difference. And AI can make a huge difference in this planning and in the support of universal design for learning. And that's what we're going to investigate in this module. So why is UDL important, right? Again, it helps everyone learn. It makes learning more flexible. And I think that's one of the keys. And it makes learning fit each of students' individual needs. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the controversy around learning styles, right? And that's kind of like the same concept of my analogy with dinner, right? If we are supporting the myth of learning styles, I am then, putting myself in a box that I am a visual learner. That's how I learn, and that's how I need to be taught. When in reality, what research is showing us is that it's not how the learning is delivered, right? It's how motivating and my connection to the content. Is the content meaningful to me? That's where the research says that makes the biggest difference. It doesn't really matter the method at which the instruction is provided. It is your connection to that, and it is how meaningful it is. And that's really where I see the power of universal design for learning. So the image here on my presentation, I'm going to move over to, whoops, the website now. So this is the UDL guidelines at CAST. And during my presentation, or kind of after you watch this video, I want you to peruse this website because many of you are likely familiar with the big components or the big principles of universal design for learning, which is multiple means of engagement, multiple means of representation, and multiple means of action and expression. However, what I really love about this presentation is that it really expands and provides explicit details across each of these components. So for example, here we have design options for welcoming interests and identities. And it really then breaks it down even more. So what does that mean? We need to optimize choice and autonomy. So what I also love is that it not only unpacks these components, but it gives you some tangible examples. And also what I love is that they've broken up options for access, support, and executive functioning. And as we all know, many of us and individuals and learners across the lifespan need support in executive functioning. Okay, so when I click on multiple means of engagement, it describes multiple means of engagement, right? So how learners are engaging with content. And what I love is that it provides then the guidelines and the considerations. So then we have specific guidelines and then considerations. And so as you are kind of leaning into the UDL guidelines, within this module, what I want you to focus on is this more specific nuanced sections, right? So looking at the guidelines and the considerations, right? So what does it mean to nurture joy and play? What does that look like? And how does AI support us within that process? And again, many of you are, I'm sure, very familiar with the big principles, but I want you to dig deeper and dig in. So for me, I am always most interested and the most relevant for me in my practice is multiple means of engagement, right? Working with adult learners, working with professionals who I'm training on accessibility who don't want to listen to what I'm sharing. I really then am focusing on this engagement, right? So how do I optimize relevance and value and authenticity? How do I address biases, threats, and distractions? And so it really gives, again, very tangible areas to support engagement and opportunities for growth, right? I like this because it's so dynamic. Like you're never done. I'm constantly like, okay, how can I nurture joy and play in this one? Okay, let's have them create some fun AI images, right? And kind of thinking about ways to make things enjoyable, fun, meaningful, authentic. So within this website, again, I'm saying love so many times in this presentation, but I really find that this website, in addition, once you click on the different considerations, it then explains it even more and then provides some different examples. And so it really is so powerful. So I want you to lean in, explore this website. You can include within your kind of connections, some new things that you might have learned. What I also love here is that you can explore the research that was utilized to develop this particular guideline or consideration, which again, just like makes my heart happy because then it also aligns research. Like, look at that. Okay, let's go back here. So we've talked about that. So you have the website that, again, you're going to engage with, especially if you kind of have only dipped maybe your toe into UDL. I want you to like dive in during this module, and I want you to kind of wade in the shallow end, wade in the deep end, right? Feel it out a little bit. Nope. My slide doesn't want to advance. Okay. So again, why is UDL important in inclusive education? And I find that not only is important for equity, so beyond accessibility. And that's one of the things that I'm really trying to move UDL away from only being associated with individuals with disabilities. It is definitely supportive and helpful for individuals with disabilities. However, it can be crucial for other marginalized populations, for multi-language learners or multilingual learners, or English as a second language, or English language learners, or whatever you call individuals who are learning English. It can be super helpful. It can be helpful for minority populations, marginalized populations, individuals who have experienced trauma. I mean, there's so many groups who can benefit from a UDL approach to a learning experience. And the other piece is that it really focuses on engagement, right? And I think that's where I am hoping learning is moving away from. And I think if you've been to trainings recently as a professional, some trainings are moving away from just kind of like, I will deliver this training and you will absorb it. But others are kind of providing this like choose your own adventure, right? And I really try and promote that, right? Do with this what you would like. Be as interactive as you would like. I mean, there are times when I just want to be a passive learner, right? And that's what I'm choosing to be as a professional, as someone who does love to learn. There are many times where I just want to passively learn. Tell me what you'd like to share with me and let me engage with that content what I want. And I've really found that sometimes I'm taking that presentation stance as well. Because for me as a professional, that's the level of engagement that I want. Allow me to choose my level of engagement. And I think that's something, again, giving that agency to our learners is crucial. So the effectiveness, right? It really does improve the effectiveness because the principles of universal design are based on brain research and where learning occurs in the brain and activating these different areas of the brain. So again, we talked about the principles already, multiple means of engagement, representation, action, and expression. And so really thinking about all the different ways that you can support universal design for learning in your instruction and in your practice, and in your everyday experience. I know for me, one specific example, and this is almost kind of like behavior support as well, but my littlest one is not a huge fan of compliance, right? I mean, what child is? But I found at an early stage, right? It's like, do you want to take a bath? She'd be like, no, right? And even I see some of her related service providers now are like, okay, do you want to read a book? And she's like, no. And okay, so I will constantly talk to especially new related service providers. Like, it's really important to not ask her and give her a choice for something that's not really a choice, right? I'm not actually asking you, do you want to take a bath? And I'm not going to honor your no. And I work really hard within my family culture, right, to honor no. When you say no, we honor your no, specifically when it comes to kind of consent. But so what I do is I rephrase, right? So, do you want to take a bath like Elsa or like Anna, right? And so now actually Frozen is not our thing. Right now it's Minecraft, right? So do you want to take a bath with your diamond armor, or do you want to take a bath like a creeper? And she's like, I feel like you're tricking me, but with diamond armor, right? And then we move on. So it really helps for her with the engagement, right? And so it helps her to kind of engage with something that is a non-preferred activity, but I add in, right, something that recruits interest, that helps her to sustain her persistence. So yes, so that's the other thing. And so another important point. Oh, I don't know where. There we go. My challenges for implementing UDL in the classroom. I was like, where's my text? So I wanted to try and, make an AI image to support some of my content. And I wrote in Adobe Firefly, right? A classroom built around the principles of universal design for learning. And if you see on my screen, nothing about these classrooms are universally designed, right? We are sitting in rows in one classroom. I guess we're at least in tables in another for social learning, but nowhere is anything wheelchair accessible. does not support adapted or flexible seating. So AI doesn't truly understand universal design for learning. So that's also important, as we've been talking about in previous modules. We need to build the foundation, right? We need to set and tell it what you want it to do and how we want it to do it. So that is also something really important, that we need to create and have the assumption that many of these AI tools don't know what UDL is. So giving it a knowledge base is really important. So again, AI can struggle, right, to understand the nuances of UDL and accessibility. And so really, again, AI is depending on pre-existing data. And for many of these engines, especially some of the not as large ones, right? Like ChatGPT is a publicly traded company. They can't be overtly promoting biases, although they can covertly do it. But some of these other smaller companies, like, well, Adobe Firefly is big, but some of these other ones might be really promoting some biases and have a real damaging impact. So we want to think about, right, making sure AI is not perpetuating bias, is not only showing one particular race, is not only showing ableist representation, again, and supporting the unique needs of all learners. And again, an over reliance of AI, not just in UDL, but in anything, right, is not helpful, because it's then lacking, it can be superficial, it's lacking that human interface. So, but challenges, there are some significant challenges within implementing UDL. And I'd say number one, the biggest issue in all of education everywhere, right, is time constraints. The biggest resource is a human resource, and the biggest resource is time. And that's what we have challenges with. So teachers, again, often face limited time to adapt their lessons. But for me, that's where AI comes in, right? So if I know I have to teach my student about social communication, and I know that they love watching The Office, but I don't have time to make the specific connection between, here's an example from The Office. Let's talk about why this was a terrible example of social communication. That's when I ask AI, hey, give me examples of terrible social communication from The Office. Bam, right? So that's where we can use our expertise and our knowledge of our students, our learners, right? What they need, what they enjoy, what motivates them in our content, and leverage the use of AI to help us with time constraints, with lack of resources, and with the lack of individualized support, right? So then it allows us to create two-step math word problems using multiplication, focusing on Minecraft characters, right? You know that that's going to really motivate Lena, but you might not have the time to research the Minecraft characters, right? But now, if AI can help you do that, now maybe you've eliminated some non-compliant behaviors. And maybe now she feels success and she's motivated because she wants to be like, who's the next character that's going to be in my word problem? So that's where we need to be thinking about how we can leverage AI to improve not only our teaching experiences, and our time constraints, but also like the individualized support. In that example of Lena being more motivated because she's now doing math, but it's about Minecraft, which is her favorite thing, right? That's UDL, multiple means of engagement. And that is, increasing authenticity. And now maybe I'm reducing the amount of, again, non-compliant behaviors and reducing the prompts. That's making my life easier, right? As her teacher, now I can maybe I don't know, take a breath and not be so elevated because I'm not dealing with a constant barrage of non-compliant behaviors. So really, I'm encouraging everyone, especially in this module, to think about how do we then combine AI with our expertise to then leverage our effectiveness within the classroom. So again, how can AI support UDL, right? It can provide personalized learning, for the adapted learning and the automatic feedback, right? For some of these tools, it can then adapt the pace, right, and provide real-time feedback. And there are many tools that integrate this already, right? Grammarly AI is an amazing, it's probably one of the most popular AI tools that are utilized within writing. And there are other adaptive learning, but for me, I really want to focus on this personalized learning, and supporting teachers. And that's again my angle within this class, is that we as professionals in the field need to leverage AI to enhance the effectiveness of our professional positions. Once we do that, then it can also be integrated within the learning process for students. So AI powered personalized learning can do adapted content. So we did look at DIFIT in an earlier module, and the modified content within Magic School AI. We will talk a little bit more about that in future modules. It can personalize the pace, provide targeted feedback. And again, for me, utilizing assistive technology, and I just had a conversation with a teacher about, okay, how can we use AI for sentence starters, right? And incorporating AI to enhance the writing process for a student, but also increasing transparency. Yeah, use AI to brainstorm and to help you with the introduction. Just copy and paste your conversation and submit it to me, or use this account that I have access to so I can see the history of all your chats. And then we can move on, because I want it to enhance your learning, not to replace your learning. And this is where, again, the bread and butter, this is where I'm focusing everything on, can help with learning, lesson planning, content creation. That's what we're going to focus on this week. And we have talked about data analysis in previous modules, but I think it's giving us more time and space to then provide the individualized feedback and think meaningfully about our student progress, and have better learning outcomes if our content is more authentic, motivating, and individualized. Ethical considerations is obviously important and always need to be considered when we think about integrating AI. Privacy, and we've talked about that. PII, personal identifying information. The biases I've talked about previously. But we also need to know about biases and then the transparency of AI and how it's being used. And so if we also do that, I then believe it becomes easier to then promote the use of AI within the learning process for our students, because we can then really draw the line and identify, okay, this is what it looks like to use AI to support your learning process versus this is what it looks like to use AI as the learning process, right? Which is totally different when it replaces it. So really empowering you, and that's what I want this module to focus on. So really what you are now going to do is I want you to explore the UDL guidelines. So you're going to go, back into your sheet here, and you're going to go into step number 1, and I want you to share your connections with my video and how UDL implementation can support student learning. Oh my goodness, didn't finish that. I also, and this student learning can be adult, can be student, can be anything. And I want you to explore the UDL guidelines in those sub-indicators and considerations. What do you think is the most relevant for your position, right? So whatever that may be, right? What's the most relevant for you and why? And which do you think are the most challenging and why? So again, we're going to look more at the UDL guidelines, and not the big principal components, but at these here: welcoming interests and identities, perception, interaction. So these guidelines and then the corresponding considerations. So once you are done with this section, you're going to move on to the rest. But looking forward to all of your UDL awesome connections. Please feel free to also include any questions that you might have or follow-ups to this amazing UDL class. Thanks, everyone.